Okay, this support video is for the digestive system, topic 7G, lesson 7. So the first thing to look at is why do we need a digestive system in the first place? So what's its purpose? Well, quite simply, the food that we eat is made of molecules, and some of those molecules are way too big to be absorbed into the bloodstream to then be delivered to all the cells in your body, for whatever reasons they might be. So large molecules can't be absorbed into the blood, they're just too big. So what we need to do is we need to break them down into much smaller pieces, basically chop them all up into much smaller pieces which can then be absorbed into the blood, and that's the role of enzymes. So we have a digestive system that helps us break large molecules down into much smaller ones. We'll come on to the details of how enzymes work in another lesson, but we're just going to look at the main organs that are involved with the digestive system. So when we eat food, the first, I suppose, organ or part of the process happens in the mouth. From the mouth we then move on to the stomach, and the food only stays in the mouth for sometimes seconds, maybe between 10-30 seconds, depend on obviously what you're eating. We then move on to the stomach, and before we get to the stomach there's a couple of things that happen inside the mouth. We obviously have chewing. We also produce a lot of saliva as well from salivary glands, so we have those. And their job is not only to add some enzymes into the food, such as amylase, but also to help soften the food and to lubricate the food as well, so it's easier to pass down into the stomach. And that will pass through a tube called the esophagus. And as we swallow, that pushes the food down into the stomach. Inside the stomach, it's simply a bag, an organ, and it's full of acid. And once the food lands in there, it spends a couple of hours in there being churned up and mixed with the acid as well. So we could probably mention that there's some acid in the stomach that helps break down the food. There's other enzymes and other parts in there as well, but we'll come on to that in a bit more detail. So once it's spent a couple of hours inside the stomach, the next main organ that the food then moves on to, as it's sort of been broken down into smaller and smaller pieces, it then arrives at the small intestine. Now the small intestine is helped out with some other organs, such as the pancreas. That's involved in digestion. We also have things like the gallbladder that helps with the digestion of the breakdown of fat molecules, and we have the liver as well, which is a very complex organ and involved in many chemical reactions, but also involved in the digestive system. And all of these sort of link in at the beginning of the small intestine. Food spends quite a bit of time in the small intestine, where it's where lots and lots of enzymes are then used to break the molecules down, just like we described up here, into much smaller molecules, so they're soluble, could be absorbed into the blood, and that's where absorption happens. After the food is passed through the small intestine and into the blood, the food that's left behind is then sent to the large intestine. And the main function of the large intestine is to then reabsorb sort of any water, or solidify all of the waste, all the things that aren't needed anymore. This is ready for the point of excretion. The remaining food that is not used or not required can spend quite a number of hours in here until it's built up into a form that can then be passed through the rectum and out through the anus when we go to the toilet. So we go, these are the main parts of the digestive system. We start in the mouth, Move on to the stomach, then to the small intestine, and then to the large intestine, and other organs that help along the way. Talk about the liver, gallbladder, and the pancreas.